Good afternoon. Bermuda and the people of St. George's need a hotel that will bring jobs and opportunity for Bermudians. That's why we are deeply concerned about the stunning lack of commitment to Bermudians being displayed by the OBA on this hotel project, and the lack of transparency surrounding the awarding of this contract. On Monday, the OBA intends to force through the St. George's Hotel Act, a piece of legislation that has zero commitment to training Bermudians and zero commitment to providing opportunities for Bermudian entertainers. This represents a blatant and serious dereliction of duty to the people of Bermuda. Capable, qualified Bermudians that are out of work need to feed their families and keep a roof over their heads. They deserve a fair chance to compete for jobs and opportunity in their own country. But their OBA government has sold them out. The PLP's position is clear. Bermudians must come first in jobs and opportunities in our own country. The OBA's position is that Bermudians don't deserve any consideration or protection. Yesterday, the Minister of Tourism presented the opposition with 2 pages of changes to the original bill that not only remove training of Bermudians as a requirement of the concessions agreement and removes the requirement for local entertainment to be employed, it also allows for the sale of Crown land, gives the developers the ability to create subsidiaries as they desire, commits Bermuda to a 262-year agreement while not disclosing the plans for the development or the Master Development Plan agreement governing the project. Contains no apparent out clauses for Bermuda government if the developer fails to meet target dates for commencement of the project or other failures to keep their end of the agreement. The Progressive Labour Party wants a hotel in St. George's just as much as anyone else. However, we refuse to sit by idly and watch a flawed process continue without saying something. The OBA wants Parliament to grant this 262-year lease and planning permission without even sharing the plans for the development or the Master Development Agreement that will govern the project. How can Parliament be expected to give its approval to something that we haven't even seen that will tie the hands of Bermuda for the next 262 years? The Minister of Tourism must speak to these issues and explain why the government has taken the stance they have. Why is the OBA government so steadfast in granting everything under the sun to foreign investors and not fighting for Bermudians to secure their futures? Let me reiterate that the PLP support any development in Bermuda, but the people of Bermuda deserve the transparency, accountability, and honesty that the OBA promised Bermudians prior to being elected in 2012. Thank you.
Any questions? No, I'll ask any questions.
Yeah, just one question, Mr. So why not just put your concerns aside and work with government who say we're at a time when the economy is still not doing very well and we need jobs, to just put your concerns aside to work with them to just help them push it through?
Good question, Tarai. I did reach out. The minister reached out to us. We had a meeting yesterday. I discussed the proposed amendments with caucus last night. And as a result of the deliberations in caucus, I reached out to the minister and asked him if he would defer it so that we could collaborate further. He said that he would talk to his people, but he wasn't overly optimistic that they would be willing to do that. So we're always willing to collaborate.
I'm not sure about this planning not being made available or being passed through without the usual procedure. There are steps of development and permissions and what have you. Surely that can't come until they get what will be signed in Parliament on Monday.
Well, they're asking us to sign off on the lease. But the Master Development Agreement, surely, Brian, we don't know what's in it. So Well, no, master development agreement does not. The master development agreement would include things like concessions, you know, how many villas they might build, what size of the hotel. Then that can go to planning, the actual plans. No, we don't expect to see the actual plans that will be submitted to planning for approval. We don't expect to see those just yet. Mind you, they have had 14 months of negotiations. I would think that they might have moved that along a little bit.
In view of the fact that Pink Beach was a fairly similar situation where the owner, developer, steamrolled his way through an awful lot of major environmental issues and got away with it, but we've got a hotel and we've got work for labour and it hasn't gone bankrupt as was suggested. Isn't that somewhat similar to what's going on here? You're almost desperate to the point.
No. I think they're two completely different projects. Pink Beach has a private home component, has a hotel component, whereas the development in St. George's has several very, very large components. A hotel, which we're not sure yet if it's a 122-room hotel. We're not sure if it's a 238-room hotel. These are numbers that have been bandied about. You know, we're not sure. You have to remember that they also are looking at building or rebuilding the golf course. They're looking at 90 condominiums, several villas, some fractionals. No, they're two completely different animals.
Let me just say one thing. Also, let me just say this very clearly. The government is asking Bermudians to give up millions of dollars over 10 years. Payroll, tax, every concession you think of. This particular development goes beyond any other concessions we have ever done. But in this particular agreement, we are not asking them to be accountable to the people of Bermuda by training Bermudians, by ensuring that entertainment is there,
Local
entertainment. We can't do that. We can't just give something to someone without any clear directions or commitment to the island other than building and them becoming very wealthy over a period of time. We promised Bermudians, or the OBA promised Bermudians, jobs. So we should tie in that the building of this particular project ties in with jobs. That's all Bermudians are asking. But to just give away and say, well, we have a building, and we hope that Bermudians will be there. We'll ensure some Bermudians are there. There's no training involved. We can't be doing that. And so the opposition has to hold the government accountable for the promises, and above all, for the future of the next generation. We are aware that the developers promised to build a development in Turks and Caicos. Mm-hmm. They haven't even started yet. And so why should we step out on faith and assume that something will take place without any direct commitment? So that's why this government this opposition will make sure that every checks and balances is in place before someone comes in and makes a promise and doesn't fulfill it. That's what we're asking for.
Just a little bit uncomfortable with the fact that you've come here today with knowledge that's been given to you by the opposite government or the debate that's going to take place on Monday. You have presented your criticisms now before the public and the press and Parliament have heard the definitive public statement from the ministers of what exactly is going to happen. So we're taking in good faith that what you're saying is true, and all the details that concern you are in fact true concerns. But I feel uncomfortable asking you questions when I don't know that it's as bad as you're saying it is, because I haven't heard or read anything about it until Monday, I suppose.
Well, certainly you've read, I would hope, Brian, that you've read the proposed act itself. That's a public document. So you should. Well, if you haven't had the pleasure, well then maybe some of your other colleagues in the other media have.
I doubt it.
Yeah. Okay. But certainly that's been in the public. That's been in the public for the last several weeks. Of course, this information, the amendments, were brought last night, and maybe you haven't had the luxury of seeing the amendments just yet, but they will be out. And you know, to answer your question, why you come out with it, you're going to take it in good faith that we're actually giving you correct information. Well, go and see the minister, see if he'll hold a press conference later today and give you copies of the amendments that he gave us last night. They're quite concerning, and as I outlined in my brief, and hence this is why we are here today. Now, if the minister would have said to me last night he'll check with the premier and his colleagues last night to see if he can put this off so that we can collaborate, as Tarai had suggested, maybe we wouldn't have this press conference today. But I haven't received a call last night. I hadn't received a call this morning. And the people of Bermuda need to know how serious this is. Because as you know, Brian, why are we here? Because we have had the luxury of seeing the amendments, and this will be debated, it's due to be debated on Monday. And as we know,
You have the right to, as an opposition party, to be shown that document.
that's right. Because, you know, quite frankly, you know, there is possibly parliamentary rule that may deny, you know, these amendments from even it. So it may be delayed anyway, depending on how that pans out. But because of certainly the history of the OBA in their short time, they have given us the amendments that are that have quite serious implications, and we're concerned about them. And we figured that it'd be best to put it to the people of the country ahead of time. And let's see how the cards fall from here.
How much faith do you have that this hotel really will be built? It's not the first time, obviously, that a hotel in St. George has been promised.
Well, first of all, Troy, let me say this. I hope it does. I really hope it does. I hope we can get through, you know, the master agreement and some of these issues. I really do, because Bermuda could use a hotel. Bermudians need the jobs, notwithstanding the fact that they want that removed from their agreement, the compulsory aspect of hiring Bermudians. But let me say that I hope that it does go forward. What concerns me is, and you'll know, that this particular site has been flawed from the beginning. It all started around Jetgate. That's where Jetgate originated from, this same site. But the Stipper family themselves, you know, there is a cloud hanging over, and you'll be aware of some of the things that bring that about. But am I faithful? I'm going to be faithful, just like you and everyone else in this room and everyone in the country. What worries me is that in 2012, this same group, this same developer, promised, had a press conference in Turks and Caicos and said, we're going to build a $500 million development. And in January this year, said that they're going to break ground this year. And it hasn't happened. So that gives me cause for concern. None of which is you know, the Ponzi scheme that's out there and the possible connection, and of course the Stipper family have denied that, and could be. But I just have a little concern when you have a press conference and you say that you're going to start a $500 million development, and you haven't started. You know, which leads me into the master development agreement, which we haven't seen. Do we have a start date? Is it going to be similar to Bazarian's agreement? Whereas if it doesn't start by a stipulated time, well, then we're going to take the lease from you and we're going to offer it to someone else. I haven't seen that yet. What happens if he gets 50% of the way through and then stops? Do we have any safeguards for that property? Or are we going to be stuck with it for 262 years?
Let me say now something else. I believe that the government is serious. Well, we believe the government is serious. But to just try to rush something through, St. George has been hanging around for 30 years now. So all we're asking for is to let's get it right. And so with all these questions out there, the minister should at least pause. I mean, we rushed to come back here for to debate this on Monday coming. We thought by now they'll have their act together and now more amendments are coming, being laid before us, and possibly more amendments are being amended to the amendment before Monday. And so what we're saying is just pause, make sure that everything, all the checks and balances are in place, and make sure the Bermudians are protected. And that's all we're asking for. Other than that, we support the development and something in St. George's. We need it. We need new hotels around here. But we've got to get it right. Giving up Crown land, we don't think is right. We don't think is right not to be ensuring that Bermudians are trained. We don't think it's not right for entertainers. We don't think that other things are right. We just make sure that things that are in place, and they're in place to protect Bermudians overall from now and for, like I said before, for future generations. And it's the media's responsibility to look at it. Look at what the previous act, and as Shadow Minister has said, and you'll probably get the amendments on Monday, and look at it and compare it and ask yourself the question, is this right? We don't think so.
Have you been given any reasons for this last minute? Sorry I'm late, I don't know if you covered this. But did they give you any reasons for the last minute changes?
No, they haven't, IO. You can only assume that, 14 months of negotiations, surely you should have been able to iron all these things out before the bill was tabled. But we have amendments that were given to us yesterday. I can only assume that the developers' lawyers have looked at it and said, no, 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 no. There was even some thought as to why do they need so many subsidiaries? And there are questions that we have over that. We know why public companies have subsidiaries and underlying companies, as you all very well know. But you're talking about government land. Why is there a need for subsidiaries? So that in itself leads to another question. But we'll see how things unfold.
But you also, because I remember looking into the legal issues they've had in, I think, Florida. There was some difficulty in serving papers on them in Venezuela. Are you concerned about that at all, the jurisdictional issues that might arise?
Well, we did stress these concerns earlier in session, when the House was in session, and we discussed St. George's in particular. So we have done, and we will do again on Monday, if indeed the debate goes through. So yes, we do have concerns, and everyone should have concerns. Not to say that they won't be unfounded, but you've had one particular gentleman has been jailed for 13 years. Over that same Ponzi scheme where money was apparently, helped to support the development in Aruba.
Final question. Maybe you have updated information, but last time I checked, the St. George's community have not been consulted by the developers. Should they have been consulted by now as to what they plan to do on the impact on?
Well, I'm fairly certain that was mentioned in the House a couple of weeks ago as well. I agree. The developers themselves should certainly be sitting at the table with the minister and indeed the premier. The premier's own record is saying tourism is critical to Bermuda's future. So is the finance minister, said that tourism is critical. But I would have thought that all the OBA would have been gladly sitting around the table with the developers, talking to the people of St. George's about what the plans are. But these people are I call them phantoms, because we very rarely see these people. Maybe we'll see more of them in the future if everything turns out okay. Maybe everything will turn out. We'll be one big happy family at the end of the day. But the proof will be in the pudding.
Have you ever met anybody?
No, I haven't.